Hello, I would like to demonstrate the Tune SQL with Query Store and DB Ace for SQL Server. So what is Query Store? Query Store automatically capture a history of query, plans and runtime statistics, and retains these for your review. It separates data by time windows, so you can see the database usage patterns and understand when query plan changes and happened on the server. For example, if I have a SQL statement SQL1 here, there's a multiple plans generated for the SQL statement during various execution environments such as different bind values. For example, the SQL1 have plan 1 to plan 5. If there's a plan 3, is the best among all historical plans. You can force this plan as the default plan of the SQL1, so you can bring back the best performance from the degraded performance, if any, SQL statement from the history. But the point is that there is no way that SQL Server can generate an even better plan that has not happened in the history. For example, if I got a plan X, I know that is the best amount all plans, but it has not happened yet in history. So how can we make use of this plan X to optimize your SQL statement? SQL Server cannot generate this new plan X, but our product can help you to do that with the Tune SQL with Query Store. It can help you to generate the new execution plan X automatically. And then you can force this plan X as a default plan to replace all historical plans. So the SQL statement will be executed faster without the need to change the source. It's a breakthrough to SQL Server to tune a SQL that cannot be tuned before in the Query Store. Here is an example. Shows you how Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio help you to locate the problematic SQL statement in the Query Store. For example, we have a SQL statement here. The query ID is 28451. The performance is quite bad compared with other SQL statements. In the Query Store, there's an execution plan. The plan ID called 35946. It is the performance of this execution plan. It is the average duration of this execution plan. It is changing between 10 and 15. So how can we explore an even better execution plan? Let's remember the query ID is 28415. And go back to our SQL tuning product. Here is the module we call Tune SQL with Query Store. Let's press the new button here. We have the extract SQL statement from the Query Store. For those SQL statement inside a database object, it will not be displayed on the list, since those SQL statements cannot be executed within our product. It had to be executed by the program that calling to the stored procedure. The testing of the stored procedure should always under user's supervision. So we cannot tune this kind of SQL statements for you in this module. You can use the Tune SQL with plan guide to tune those database objects, SQL statements. Now we have this. The query ID of the SQL statement that we shown you before. It is 28451. Okay, we search the SQL statement. Or you can input partial of the SQL text to locate the SQL statement you want to tune from the Query Store. Okay, now we press OK. This is the SQL statement we're going to tune. And then we press Tune here. And use the default setting to tune this SQL statement. Now the Query Store hints is being generated accordingly. There are 75 distinguished query stored plans. After investigation of 100 Heinz injection for this SQL statement, the benchmark of those query store plans is in process. You can see that there is one that with performance is much better than the original SQL statement. without the query store hints. Alright, the benchmark is going to be finished. Now, we found that there is a query store plan 66. Has the best performance. It's up to 80 times faster than the original SQL statement. Now we can force this plan to the original SQL statement. This SQL text here. So we can press the Force Plan button here. Before we force this plan to the SQL statement, let's go back to the SQL Server Management Studio. What is the original SQL performance? Let me execute it in the SQL Server Management Studio. Let's execute the SQL. It will take a long time, so I will skip it in this video, instead of waiting for 25 seconds. Alright, we come back to the SQL statement. You can see that the SQL statement is running quite slow. It's around 18,000 milliseconds. The CPU time is 58,000 milliseconds here. Let's go to our product to force the plan. Let's force the plan to this SQL in Query Store. I forced the plan here, and it is successful. Here is the query ID, the plan ID, and our hints location. Let's go to the SQL Server and see the speed of the SQL statement. We execute the SQL statement again. Oh, it is. Come back immediately. You can see that the CPU time about 400, and the elapsed time about 276 milliseconds. It is how to tune a SQL statement in Query Store without the need to touch your source code. It is very helpful to tune SQL statements for third-party applications that you don't own the source code. SQL Server Query Store feature is a very powerful feature that can help you stabilize a SQL's performance by forming a historical plan. But it cannot help you to create a new query plan. That has not happened before. It means it will not improve a SQL performance right away. With this SQL tuning tool, we bring SQL Server Query Store to new horizon that not just rectifying a degraded SQL performance, but give it a new role of tuning a bad performance SQL with the Query Store. It is the demonstration for tuning SQL. Thank you for watching our demonstration. Thanks.